So once your filing's done, sand it, 400 grade paper, wet or dry, and sand it everywhere. So around the outside, on the sides, and once it's all gorgeous, don't go any farther, because we don't need to actually bring this up to a high polish until after we get our other work done. So now we need to cut the place for our cup, for our pearl. So measure the pearl size. This is slightly over 6 mil. So the disc needs to be between 1/4 and 1/3 bigger than what we want, because as we dome it, it'll get smaller. So I'm going to start with an 8mm disc, 0.5 thick, and form it for this. And I'm going to use fine silver for the cup. So this is sterling for the ring. So when you're going to make your hemisphere, make sure that the disc fits down inside the depression. Make sure that the punch is smaller than the depression. You can hear it when it hits the bottom. So just kind of shift it around in there. Then we'll go to the next smaller one. Once again, make sure that your punch is smaller than the depression. But that's our beginning. So we just work smaller and smaller until we get it the correct size. And the next smaller punch. Always check the punch on the depression first before you put your metal in. And that way you'll never put really ugly marks in your dapping punch. So when you get your pearl cup the correct size, sand any little marks off the outside. We're going to put a punch mark in the bottom so that we can drill it. And if you just hold your punch against the hemisphere down on the inside, when you have it right in the middle, it will actually hold itself up. Now, that will be thin enough that you can just drill straight through. We're going to drill with a 1mm drill bit. We're going to mark this profile on the top of the ring so that we can cut a shallow mark so that the cup will sit down in the top of the ring. And only about 1/3 of the cup, so we want a fairly shallow cut up here on top. So what I'm going to do is put a texture mark on so that when I scribe, I'll just have a shiny line to look at, to saw out. So I set my dividers at slightly smaller than half that distance because I would like to have to file to get to the shape. So I'm just going to align that with the top of the ring. And I've got this side stuck into my bench pin. And then I'm just going to put my little mark on there, so I'll saw that out. Now, I'll take my round jeweler's file and I'll just file until this fits perfectly. Now, we want as good a fit as possible on this because we want a nice solder join. Yeah. Now, at this point, we're going to drill a little depression in here so that our pearl peg can get soldered on, and then we'll just slip this down over the peg and solder it to the ring also, and the peg will hold this into place. Now we're going to take a small round burr on our handpiece. This is a 1 millimeter burr. We're just going to hold that sideways at the middle of that depression. And that'll give us our spot to drill. Now we don't have to drill very deep. It's just to give the wire a place to sit so that it makes a better join. Now the 1 millimeter bit, and I'm just going to hold that sideways on the bench pin. So now I've got just a small depression for the wire to fit in. So we're using 0.8 square sterling. File the end flat. And I'm using my double third hand just because I can. So we want that very nicely lined up. The flux, you can see it's slightly off on an angle, but it doesn't matter because once it's soldered we can straighten it up. Now I'm just going to use a small piece of hard solder. And if you remember, our join is opposite that cutout, so there's absolutely no problem using hard solder. I'll just pick that up with my solder pick. Now, the majority of the heat is going to need to be on the ring because it's so much bigger than the wire. So the flux is clear. I'll just place the solder ball touching the wire. The majority of my heat still on the ring. The solder flowed, and that's it. So now we'll quench it and pickle it. Just quench it in water. So we're out of the pickle. Dry it off. Grab your square wire. Give it a good twist. You shouldn't have to worry about your soldering because if it's a good job, it'll hold just fine. Now I'm going to clip that about 6 mil above the ring, and then I'm going to slide the cup on. Now when you cut wire, it always squeezes it into an oval. So if you have a 1 millimeter piece of wire and a 1 millimeter hole, and you've cut the wire with side cutters, it won't fit. So just put a slight taper on the end with your file, and everything should fit perfectly. So now I've just dropped that down over the peg. I can see I need to make the hole a little bit bigger to fit down on there. And once I get this, yeah, I need to file it a little bit. Once I get that so it's sitting down against the ring, then I'll solder it. But we know this is nice and stable because our peg is soldered in there. So now we just need to make our cup fit correctly, and we'll be good. I think I'll just open that hole up to like 1.2 mil, and it should slip down over that solder. So I've got the pearl peg sitting down between the two charcoal blocks. And what I'm going to do is take one large piece of hard solder again. You could use medium or easy on this if you want. Neutral flame, and I'm going to put the solder on this side. So I'm going to pick it up with my pick. Heat the right side of the ring and place the solder on the left side. Now the ring once again needs to be hotter than the cup because it's thicker. The flux has gone clear. And there it goes. Now it looks great on this side. And the little hole on that side I'm going to have to tidy up. So first, I'll see if I can cheat and put a little piece of solder there. Usually odds aren't good. No, I got lucky. So now we'll quench it and pickle it. So we're out of the pickle. Have a look at your solder and make sure it's all beautiful. Hallmark it. Tidy up the bump from the hallmark. And polish it. And I would polish it by putting it in a tumbler, but you can polish it on the wheel if you wish. Okay, we're out of the tumbler. We're ready to set our pearl. So check that it fits. And you can see that it's slightly off, so we just push that over, line our peg up, Now we're ready to glue that in place. 5-minute epoxy. So equal amounts of your epoxy. This is 5 minutes, so works really quickly. A little bit on the peg. And on the hole. Leave your stirrer in your epoxy. Drop your pearl on there. Leave it alone for 5 minutes. And that's it.